You're listening to the Doctor Is In podcast, brought to you by MartinClinic.com. During the episode, the doctors share a lot of information. As awesome as the info may be, it is not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, or prevent any disease. It's strictly for informational purposes.
If you've seen our training, Age-Proof Your Brain, Don't Let Your Body Outlive Your Brain, the Age-Proof Your Brain, Don't Let Your Body Outlive Your Brain, then in there we share a couple of really staggering statistics. For example, last year, so this is in 2018, dementia became Britain's biggest killer, even overtaking heart disease. And of course, this is for the first time. I mean, heart disease has been the number one killer in every modern country across the world for a long time. Yet here we have dementia climbing up the charts to the point that even in Britain, it's become the biggest killer. And again, we shared in that training some of the headlines that took place over the last year. A couple of big ones is this. Half the adults aged 85 and older have Alzheimer's. So think about this. A lot of people want to live longer, extend their life. A lot of people want that. They're looking at anti-aging for a lot of just to live longer. However, if 50% of the people that live to 85 and older have Alzheimer's, that's a major problem. So one of the big issues that people are scared of is that their body will outlive their brain. So that's what the training was about. And if you've been through it, then you've seen this stuff before, but not what I'm going to share with you, because I got something really big I want to share with you guys in a few minutes. But if you haven't seen the training, just go to our website and you can sign up for the training there. But in that training, we reverse engineered dementia and Alzheimer's. And, what we've done is we've shown that, in every case of dementia and Alzheimer's, there's inflammation. However, that inflammation doesn't just spontaneous, or it's not just magic. It doesn't just show up out of nowhere. And so what we did in that training is we showed that there's actually 3 different ways that you can get inflammation in the brain that can lead to dementia and Alzheimer's. And of course, we talked about high circulating insulin. We talked about free radical damage. And we also talked about leaky gut syndrome. So that's kind of what we talked about in that training. And specifically, we talked about this idea of increased gut permeability, which is just another way, it's really the research way of saying leaky gut syndrome. And of course, we shared in there the direct connection between your gut microbiota, or your microbiome, which is the bacteria in your gut, your probiotics, and how it influences the health of your blood-brain barrier. And then we also showed how there's a direct connection between your brain and your gut. Now, a new study that just came out this year, so 2019, showed that a common fungus, and Candida, which is extremely common, can actually cause brain infection and impair memory. And what's interesting about this is that they found that Candida can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. So you have this barrier around your brain that for the longest time, they thought the brain was sterile. They thought that the brain was free of all bacteria. We're finding out now that's not the truth at all. And they also thought that very few things can pass through your blood-brain barrier, that it protected your brain from a lot of things. However, we've already known that heavy metals can get through it. Now we're finding out, and we've known this for a bit in our clinic, we've talked about this before, but now research is starting to show that even fungus can get through your that blood-brain barrier and get into your brain and trigger an inflammatory response. And again, if you go back up here, neuroinflammation, which is inflammation of the brain, can be triggered by leaky gut because of the fact that Candida can get through it. So this is a massive awakening for modern medicine because, again, they thought the brain was sterile, that there was no way that these things can get through there. Now, I also went in a study, and I found this from the researchers, and I just wanted to share with you quickly as well. So what they're finding is that fungi are becoming a more common cause of what they say upper airway allergic diseases such as asthma. So a lot of people have asthma, and it's actually a fungus infection, which is very interesting in itself. But what they find is this: infections causing airway allergic diseases such as asthma and other things have been associated with increased risk for dementia later in life. So think about that for a second. So, and of course, it's because they're finding out that this Candida is very difficult to kill, and it can cross your blood-brain barrier and just plant itself in your brain and create a low level of inflammation, and then it just leads to neurodegeneration, which can lead to Alzheimer's and dementia. So, and here's what I want to share with you. There are two big reasons why Candida becomes a big problem in the first place. One, it isn't killed when it should be. And two, it's allowed then to get into your bloodstream. So there's two separate things that have to happen. It has to get in and it has to pass through. So let's talk about that quickly. So here, let's look at the stomach. This is a major cause of why Candida is a problem for anybody. So in a normal, healthy stomach, you have stomach acid, hydrochloric acid. The more stomach acid you have, the lower your pH. And the lower your pH means that you can break down proteins properly, and it kills bacteria and viruses. It kills Candida, it kills fungus, things that you consume should die in the stomach. So on the flip side, an abnormal stomach has low acid and it has a higher pH, which means you're not breaking down protein properly, which creates a lot of problems in itself. And then all this junk is allowed to pass into your system. So, and here's an FYI, just before I go any further, this is here. So if you look at the anatomy of the stomach, let's look at heartburn, for example. So you have a little valve or a little sphincter, they call it, at the top of your stomach before your esophagus. When that valve is open, acid is allowed to pass from your stomach into the esophagus, and that's where you get that burning, heartburn-like pain. However, here's the thing that people don't talk about, and this is the truth. This is fact. The lower your stomach pH, so let's go back up here. The lower your pH, which means the more hydrochloric acid, what happens is that causes that sphincter to close. So it's like putting a bow tie around your esophagus. So when your pH is low, meaning you have normal amount of stomach acid, your esophagus, the sphincter closes and acid can't get up. However, if you don't have enough stomach acid, then your pH is high. And if your pH is high, it does not trigger that closing of that sphincter. So again, which is crazy to think that they would tell you that the problem with heartburn is too much stomach acid, and then they give you an antacid or they give you something that literally stops the production of acid, when it's actually the opposite what's going on. It's completely the opposite. So here's the thing. How do you know if you have low stomach acid? Because remember, that's a big problem. If you have low stomach acid, you're not killing the good bacteria, the bad bacteria that gets through, or the fungus, right? So here, you get heartburn. Heartburn is an indication that you do not make enough stomach acid. Here's another one. Bloating, belching, or burping after a meal. If you're doing that, you're not making enough stomach acid. That's a fact. If food feels like it's sitting in your stomach for a long time, it just feels like it's heavy just sitting there, it's because you don't have enough acid breaking it down. Some people get constipation. Other people get diarrhea. Women, this is a big one. Hair loss, because you're not breaking down proteins in the stomach. So a lot of you know that thyroid also causes a lot of these issues. But here's another one a lot of people are not aware of. Like I said, hair loss in women, this is a big one, because you need stomach acid to break down protein to get to the amino acids that leads to healthy hair. Also, yeast infections, toenail fungus, a lot of these things we think it's superficial, but it's not. It's coming from the fact that this stuff's getting inside of us. Athlete's foot, jock itch, and here's another interesting one that's highly correlated with it as well. Weak nails, or even those ridges you see across the nails from top to bottom. You get a lot of those ridges, it usually indication that you're not making enough stomach acid. So now you have low pH. So once they pass through the stomach because of low acid, then they're allowed to get into the bloodstream. Now, how does that happen? Well, that's where probiotics come in. So you have a barrier, and just like this Great Wall of China, so on one side, you have your digestive tract, your small intestines, and the other side's your blood vessels. So only certain things are allowed to pass. And then you have these little kind of like gates all the way throughout that allow certain things to get through, vitamins, nutrients, all those things. And the guards don't allow bad things to get through, like fungus, candida, parasites, bacteria, toxins. And of course, those guards are your probiotics. So when you have a lack of good bacteria in your gut, it allows for bad things to get through. So the big problem again, and this is what my dad always says here, leaky gut, leaky brain. And it's true. So how do you stop Candida and other junk from causing you serious problems, including future dementia and Alzheimer's? Well, and this is key, make sure your digestive system is working from one end to the other. And again, you need probiotics because of the good bacteria, and then you need a good digestive enzyme that allows you to break down the food, that allows you to keep a proper pH in your stomach. And the combination of those two things, a good digestive enzyme and a good probiotic, will keep your digestive tract healthy and will kill and not allow the Candida to get into your bloodstream. Again, thanks, and I hope you found it educational.
You've reached the end of another Doctor is In podcast with your hosts, Dr. Martin Jr. and Sr. Be sure to catch our next episode, and thanks for listening.